You don't get through this life unbroken. You don't. Life will trash our trophies. Sooner or later, they're going to be trashed. And what do you do in the midst of that brokenness? How do you step forward? Because
welcome to the Badass Dad podcast. KDH here on the microphone. And yes, we are in the Iron Yeti studios. Coming up the end of June 2021, and super excited about this. I got my good friend Mike Paulison on the microphone today.
Glad to be here, Kevin. Appreciate it.
How you feeling?
I'm doing well today.
Yeah, I mean, life is, it almost seems like it's just normal life for you when you have all, the rest of us just see a ton of curveballs being thrown at you between, I know your mom recently passed away, cars are exploding all over the place, having transportation issues, issues getting in and out of Haiti and keeping people safe and everything else. Like, I don't know. There's so many plates spinning. How are you really doing? Are you good?
Yeah, I am. You learn to understand how to manage conflict, and you can't let it control your life. I deal with decisions on a regular basis that may put people's lives in jeopardy or keep them safe. And you've got to have a level head, and you have to have a clear perspective. And especially this month, I've learned to look at, where do you see grace? Where do you see the positive in the midst of the pain? Even in the midst of grieving my mom, seeing, okay, but where's the blessing? Blessing was she haven't suffered. She went fast. She was having some of her own hardships. And so you're looking for those moments of, where's the hope in the midst of destruction? And it's there. It's always there. You just might have to work to find it.
Yeah. It almost feels like there's a speck of hope somewhere in all this crap that's going on. Yeah.
And I believe in the sovereignty of God. God's in it somewhere. Sometimes you got to search through the rubble to find him. Yeah. But he's operating and he's moving.
I love it. Well, today, really want to focus on your newest book that is not out yet, but it will be soon.
Hopefully by the end of August. We're working on the photo section right now. The rest of it's ready to go to print. So mid-August, late August, we should be on Amazon and out for sale.
Love it. So I got a chance to read the galley copy, and I got to tell you, I mean, everything from the beginning and the people that you had doing some acknowledgments and kind of promoting the book was truly phenomenal. I was like, dude, I got so much just from what those guys wrote, and then all the way through the story. And so, Unsafe Faith is the title of the book. And let's just talk about it. I mean, it is very timely, I think, this book in your journey over a couple of decades and work in Haiti. And I love how you start at the very beginning and you talk about really having a desire not to go to Haiti.
Yeah, the book overall is not just about Haiti. It's about our own life journey and the challenges we face. But in the beginning, it's actually the last place on earth I wanted to go. I was working at a church in Northeast Colorado in Sterling, and we had helped the poor around us and take care of people and really felt like we were supposed to be involved in international missions before that was a big thing. People weren't going on short-term mission trips. And yeah, I told God I'll go any place in the world. Just don't send me to Haiti. Yeah, I saw the commercials. I saw the flies and the kids. I saw the bloating stomachs.
Yeah.
And I knew my heart couldn't handle it. I love kids, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be there. And as you read in the first chapter, it was really my battle with God, not only not to go, but then not to go again. But he kept opening up the door and not giving me any options.
Yeah. Well, in that, and once again, maybe this is putting words in your mouth, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost feels like, when Jacob wrestles with God, that you were grappling with God.
Yes.
And
because I really was willing to go anywhere in the world. It came down to 3 opportunities: a boat down the Amazon, helping people, a medical boat, or in Russia, where I would end up years later, or Haiti. And Haiti was the one place I didn't want to go. And God systematically closed the doors and basically said, if you're going to go, this is where you're going to go, or you can stay home. Because he doesn't force us to step out. So I had one option.
Well, give us, and I mean, I guess we want to, tempt people's, appetite for the book, give them a little teaser on it. But let's talk a little bit about that. So you submit, he's got your arm clearly caught. You're in a triangle. You're about to be choked out, and you say, okay, I'm going to go. And you first land in Haiti. So just, if you'll tell this story, just of getting on the van brand new in Haiti.
All right. So I arrive in this third world country, hot, humid, everything I imagined as far as the heat and humidity. We go through customs, which is its own trial, much more than it is now. We go outside, and there are thousands of people around the gate staring at us as if we're encaged in a zoo. So we throw the luggage on top of the van. We loop a rope through all the luggage, tie it down to secure it. One of the Haitians gets up and drives on top. We're in a 15-passenger van. It's dark out, and we're driving through Port-au-Prince at night. So I am in the passenger seat. We're only about, 5 miles out of the airport. Somebody darts out of the crowd, jumps on the van, finds the one piece of luggage we missed with a rope, jumps off, and starts running away with it. Our driver stops the van, gets out, and starts running after him. Well, I did what was natural for me. I jump out of the van, and I start running after him. I get about 50 yards, and my mind starts clicking really fast, like, what in the world are you doing? You're going to die here. So it's one of those pictures where I'm running full speed, and I just start slowly getting slower and slower, and then I start backing up. We actually get the luggage back. The Haitian caught up with him, shoved his hand in his back, and told him, don't turn around, I have a gun. Drop the luggage and move, and that's my introduction to a third world country.
Welcome to Haiti.
Exactly.
in all your decades of martial arts, at this point.
With all the years I've fought, you do have confidence. You have your confidence in your ability, not cockiness, because if you've done it as long as I have, you always know there's somebody better. But when you're in the midst of a crowd, and they're standing around watching you, and you're in an unknown place. We in the gym used to do, at times, being attacked by multiple attackers, and you had to respond. But the truth is, one guy can only handle so many people. And it just ends up being in chaos. And you start being humbled by the situation. And that's the moment I was in. It's way beyond my ability to control at that point. And I don't know the language. I know nothing really about the culture yet. I know nothing about the people. Today I know the language. I know the people. I have lots of friends. There's nowhere I don't go where somebody doesn't come up and know me. But then there's none of that.
Yeah. And you're a 6'4" white guy walking through here, and you're sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. There's no other white guys walking around, and nobody's 6'4".
Right.
Later on in the story, after we lose the property, and I'm angry and upset, I go walk the streets, and at that moment, I look like a 6'4" angry white man, and nobody's coming near you.
Right.
But that's a whole different story years later.
Well, one of my takes on the book, and I was telling you just before we got on the air that you may disagree with this, but I really, as I read this, and also knowing you, I read this more as a leader's journey and walking with God. Sometimes wondering, like, God, I believe, but help me in my unbelief. And that unsafe faith where you're like, I'm taking steps forward, but I have no idea what's coming next. And I think as a visionary leader as you are, we want to see further down the path than we can, and you navigate that. So talk a little bit about that and how, like, maybe there are people that are going to listen to this that will never go to Haiti, will never go anything, but they're going to have their own unsafe faith experiences, whether they're starting a business or running a business or leadership in law enforcement or whatever it may be. Talk a little bit about the leadership and that process as well.
Even in the cover of the book, the image is selected to be a metaphor. You've got razor wire on top of a wall that's in the shape of a heart with flowers growing out of it. It's actually a picture that comes right from Haiti. And the concept is, it's a very dangerous place, but life can be very dangerous, but there can be beauty growing out of it. And it really, parts of this book are written about the experiences in Haiti. And parts of them just happen in Haiti. It's not necessarily about Haiti. It's about our lives going through the chaos of this world. You don't get through this life unbroken. You don't. You know, life will trash our trophies. Sooner or later, they're going to be trashed. And what do you do in the midst of that brokenness? How do you step forward? Because I'm a visionary. I like to plan out 6 months, a year, 5 years, and know where I'm going. And I still do that, but realize that's fragile. Life's going to change. That brokenness, you're going to all of a sudden be living in the midst of the rubble. And now how do I figure a way forward? And part of this is my journey through the rubble. When you lose everything and you have people depending on you, I have an amazing staff walking beside me, but they're all looking for you to you in that moment. You're looking to God, but there isn't this big revelation from heaven. Here's what I'm going to do for you.
Right.
It's, I'm standing in the rubble. And I think a lot of Nehemiah in the Old Testament, and I don't want to go off on some preacher here, but you know, Nehemiah in the Old Testament, he's in a foreign land. He's living faithfully and serving faithfully in that land. He's allowed to go back and observe the condition of the wall of Jerusalem. And standing in the midst of that rubble, he gets a sense of who God is, and he just begins to weep because he's overwhelmed by the task. And I had that moment. All right, God, I don't even know what to do now. What's my next step? And I'm sitting on a porch with a 5-year-old boy on my lap in Haiti after I lost everything. And I heard someone say there's a piece of property in another part of the city available. It's Carnival, which is the big voodoo night in Haiti. I never let anybody go out on that night. We always lock them in, keep them safe. Sun's going down. The worst time in the whole year to go out. And I turned to my director and said, I want a vehicle. We're going. He looks at me like I'm nuts. But in that moment, I just knew that was the next step in that moment. I didn't know where it was going to lead. I didn't know the outcome. I had no guarantees. There's a voice inside of you. Sometimes it may be God, and sometimes it's just from your own experiences that you know this is the next step. And every leader has been there. Every leader who's been in the dirt knows this is just the next right thing to do. And I'm not even going to be able to explain to you why it is. I just know. And sometimes it's that gut. You realize what you're made of and what's deep down inside. Because you can die in that mess. You can throw up your flag and say, I'm done. It's over. But yet, I got to tell you, inside of leaders, you can't die there. Because you won't die there, because you won't let yourself. There's something that God's made you to be, to step into that rubble and say, I don't know the answer, but I don't stop here. And both those guys who wrote those introductions, they've both been to Haiti with me. Mm-hmm. They've both taken numerous trips. They've both seen the dark side of evil, and they've walked through it with me and understand that, we link arms and we move forward.
I love it. You know, one of the feelings that I got, from the book, and you share this very directly, and it's hard, one, having never been there, and, I've spent my entire life in the comforts of the United States, but just the feeling of a culture being rejected and how they end up turning to voodoo. And for you to have to overcome, that cultural dynamic. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, it's kind of early on in the book. I think you talk about that as well. So
yeah, it's understanding the history of that country.
Yeah.
20 years ago, I was teaching at a seminar, and I asked a Haitian one time, why did your country turn to voodoo? And he said, we looked at America and saw how prosperous they were. And we figured God loved the white man. And then we looked at ourselves and how poor our condition was, and we assumed God didn't love us. So we had to choose a different God. And for them, that's how they saw themselves. And when you see yourselves as unworthy in your own eyes and don't recognize your own value, you begin to live out of that. And the sad part is they've been beaten over and over again in their history. And some of them have accepted this is just the way it's going to be. And we're trying to breathe life into people that culture, problems, your family, they don't have to dictate where your life goes, or even your country. I don't know if the country's going to change, but I know we've chosen the harder path. I talk about we don't adopt out. We're going to raise the kids. We're going to empower them. We're going to give them education. In fact, the exciting thing for us is we've now watched the people we've hired to lead become the leaders. And so we thought we were just raising the next generation, and we found out even the adults we have right now have stepped up and are leading and are making hard decisions and are moving ahead. It's not being trapped by whatever your past is. And obviously we see that in our country all the time. We see that in men. They think it's predetermined who you're going to be and predetermined how you're going to live. And it's not. You can make the choices and the steps. I was just counseling with somebody on the way here who is stuck and really telling them it's their decision. I can help them, tell them what steps to make, but I can't make it for them.
Right.
They've got to walk that hard journey. And it's sad that some people are put in a bad situation and are hurt by circumstances. But they're the ones who are going to have to make those steps.
And it's often one of the most challenging areas for men, for dads, to escape when they go, well, my dad never, or my family never, or they always this. And so they have cloaked themselves in this pain, and then they see themselves as being, and then and to be honest, that pattern persists because then they start repeating what they saw,
And that's what's exciting for us, because our staff now, that the Haitians that are on our staff down there, do not see themselves as victims of their culture. They're seeing themselves as people who are making a difference. They're coming to me and saying, when are we going to start the school? We got people lined up. We got to get this going. We're going to build a church next year. And it's not because of we thought it was the right time. They came to me and said, this community needs this. And we need to do this. Not you need to do this. We need to do this. They're taking their own ownership. And now for 2 years, because of COVID and their own political crisis, I haven't been bringing teams in. Teams were on a regular basis. So they had to step up, and man, just truly impressed by the people that they've become and the leaders they've become.
Yeah. Well, I would say this. I mean, there's two things I want to, say to you. One, I've just always appreciated that the way that you go about your business there. And I think here and when we've interacted is I've never felt like you were trying to, I don't feel like you have a savior complex. Like you're there to save people. I really feel like, and I'd love for you to speak about this, that you see your role is really to raise up leaders. And I love that you're raising up a generation of leaders in Haiti that are Haitian. That you're like, the change comes from within, and within that community. It's not the white man coming from Colorado down there to save them. No, it is you came and you brought some skills to be able to lift up, and you've demonstrated that so well in your ability to raise leaders. And I think this is important for dads to hear, no matter where they are, that we have a huge responsibility to raise up the next generation of leaders. So talk to us about that.
I will say that's part of the maturity process. Because when I was young, I wanted to build this big organization and have it be very successful and it be about me. And go to conferences. I'd speak at conferences. I was blessed to have success early on in my life and ministry, and you begin to think it's about you.
Okay.
And then life trashes your trophies.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And so you start to rebuild. And that's when you begin to prioritize and realize this isn't about all that I can suck out of it for me. We talked last time about that life map, and my theme on top of my life map that directs everything for me says impact others. And what I mean by that is just that. Breathe life into others. And whether that's in America or Haiti or when we go to Russia, any of those places, that's the role I see myself. In fact, I remember teaching at one conference down in Haiti and them asking me questions about, what are we as America going to do to help them? And I looked at them and said, America's not your savior. I'm not your savior. You are having to determine how you together step forward, and you can't be looking for an answer from everybody else. And that's what we've tried to breathe into them. And it's taken a lot of years, but God has put the right people at the right place to have that type of leadership down there. But that's true here. How do I add value to this person's life? How do I breathe life into them? We are living in a soul-sucking society. And instead of going and breathing life in other people, it's all about what can I get out of it. I believe you get life when you give life. I believe it flows through you. And you want to be filled more, well, give away more. Be generous, not just financially, but with your time, with your words, with your life.
With your energy. And, one of the things that happens, and I know you would say this, is that the more that you give your energy, your passion, that reservoir just immediately gets filled back up. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's a finite amount. The energy is never it never goes away. It just gets replenished. And so absolutely love that. Let's talk for just a minute because and you could go through the specific scenario that this happened, but you raise up a leader and he turns Judas on you. Mm-hmm. And that happens in leadership roles. That happens in how you deal with it. And I don't know if you'd use these words, but I would be pissed off, frustrated, angry, all those things. Mm-hmm. And
well, there's a volume 2 of this book that's already being lived out because you have that in this book twice, and it's happened again, and the book isn't even printed and out yet.
Right.
But God has raised up another person, and again, there's a time you want to throw up your hands and you wonder, is there anybody out there that I can trust and lean on? Because I put a lot of authority into these people. And it's tough when you bring somebody in that close and they stab you in the back. And you called it to Judas. But again, you have a choice to make of that. Do you give up? And when I look in the faces of these kids who have nowhere else to turn, and not even them, my staff, who have no other jobs and no other way to feed their families, walking away isn't an option. Life gets hard, and we've got to make some hard decisions. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. There are times that thought passes your mind. And for my family, my girls have sat around the table while I'm in a third world country, not knowing if their father's coming home, and have to live out of fear of that moment. And that costs, leadership, there's a cost. They talk about that in the book, the people who write the evaluations and comments on the book. There's a price to pay for leadership. And you're not the only one paying it. It's the people closest to you who are going to pay it as well. And so you got to be sure I'm walking in this place, not just for me, but can the people who are taking this journey with me pay that cost as well? And how do I help them through the cost that it's laid upon them.
Well, let's talk about being a dad. How you navigate those waters and how you communicate, to your 3, daughters. That, I mean, now, granted, they've really grown up with dad doing this. So it's not like, oh, dad, now I'm a teenager and dad decides he's going to, okay. So they've grown up understanding some of this. So it's not something new to them. But at the same time, I know you have articulated this to them and let them know, your mission and what you're called to do. How do you do that?
Since the girls have been young, we've taught them service and being a servant. They grew up with me feeding the poor in Old Aurora and helping the homeless and walking in the midst of the areas down there that are very rough. They know my martial arts background. They know my view, and it doesn't make it any less fearful for them. But man, at 5 years old, they're out feeding the homeless people, and they're talking to homeless people and hugging people who other people won't hug and who other people won't touch. And really try to teach them that you can't live a safe life. The title of the book is Unsafe Faith. Everybody wants this safe God, and everybody wants to be assured of everything's going to be okay, and this is going to turn out. I'm working at a congregation right now, and there was a sign up on the wall talk about how if God leads you there, he'll keep you safe there. And my first thought was, I know 11 apostles who wouldn't think that because they lost their lives. It depends on how you define safe. And I've tried to do that with the girls. I've tried to help them understand this isn't something special. This is just what you do as a human being and a person of faith to add value to other people's lives. This isn't something that you do to have other people look at you. I always think of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa didn't serve in the streets of Calcutta in the harshness and that environment to other people tell how great she was. She hurt and she doubted and she struggled. But that's what she did because she knew it was the right thing to do. And sometimes we're left with, what's the right thing to do? Not the easy thing. And I've taught my girls that over and over again. I don't believe in just taking the easy path. I remember we were at a Krav Maga gym, Maddie and I, and we hadn't been there that long at studying this form of martial arts. And they went through a time of workout, and they were doing exercise and do the pyramid. And the teacher says, well, it's easier if you start at the top and go down. You can do all this, and it's easier that way. Or you can go from the bottom and go up and do it the hard way. And I turn around and look at Maddie, and she's about 16 years old. I said, what are we doing? And she smiles and she says, we're doing it the hard way. He said, you're right. Yeah. We're not going to take the easy way up.
Yeah.
But finding the joy in that and living out of that, I'm hoping, I don't know how I did as a dad. Truth is, this is all a gamble. You do what you can, and then you release them into life, living out of what you've breathed into them. They are right now at that point, 18 to 21, where they're determining their life goals. They're determining their partners. And all I can do is hope and pray that I've laid the right foundation, that they make the right choices. I know dads who've done the right thing, and kids have still been a mess. Sometimes it's not about us. Sometimes we've done everything we can, and we pray that they return back to it. Because, as I said before, sometimes life not only trashes trophies, sometimes life trashes lives. But you don't walk away from them. My girls know that I'm there through every fight with them. Even if I don't agree with them, I'll still walk beside them.
That's good. That is so good. Many times, and I know you've heard this over and over and over again, where people will come and say something to the effect of, well, I just don't feel like God's taking me this direction, or I just don't, and it's a feeling thing. Mm-hmm. And for me, my interpretation, I'm once again an amateur on the Bible, but my interpretation is they want it to feel good, and therefore it's from God. Mm-hmm. Which I'm not. There's this little book in the middle of it. I always thought it was Job, but Job in there. And I don't think he felt really good during that time. And there have been moments in obviously the book talks a ton about this when you don't feel it, but you keep taking steps forward. And, you've said numerous times, what's the next right step? Man, what do you do when you're forced with that? I don't really even know what the next right step is.
Yeah. You got to be careful with feelings because feelings are fickle. There's times I don't want to get out of bed. There's times I don't want to go out and do what I need to do. There's times in my marriage I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to step into this arena because it's going to be hard. And there's times that I say the wrong thing and I'm the one who messed up. And I've got to take ownership. I've got to walk into that. But it's walking through that. It's realizing that life is not based upon emotion. Even when I don't feel good, I've got to take the next right step and walk and make that decision. Even if I'm not feeling like, wow, this is going to leave someplace miraculous. If you read our story, there are twists and turns where God has done amazing things just simply because we put ourselves in the right place. Not because we did something amazing, but we went out on that limb. And the only thing we could do in that moment was trust God was going to have the outcome because I couldn't see it. And we would have never experienced what we did and have if we played it safe. We would not be where we're at today if we played it safe. We would not be saving kids at the rate we are, educating kids who couldn't go to school because they're so poor if we played it safe. We're all drawn to safety. Every single one of us, the whole fight and flight, and even those who know they have a warrior spirit, there's times where we want to fly. There's times where you're getting tired of getting punched.
Yeah. Yep.
And, I've gotten punched over 1,000 times or more, probably tens of thousands. And it gets old after a while. And sometimes life is just beating on you and it's punching you. I love what St. Paul says in the epistle where he says, the translation says, I'm knocked down, but I'm not knocked out. I'm going to get back up. I've been beaten, but you know what? I'm not going to stay on the mat. And I remember being in fights where I've gone down to a knee and I've seen stars. And in that moment, you're making a decision. Am I done? Because there's a time to tap out.
Sure.
To say, okay, or am I going to get back up? And I can't make that decision for others. They've got to do that for themselves. We had to do it for ourselves. But I can tell you that God's on the other side of that. And he's never left you. You've never known a moment in your life where he hasn't walked beside you, even if it doesn't feel like he's there.
Well, Pastor Mike, author Mike Paulison. Man, I so richly enjoy our conversations, and we're about to move to Texas, and so but I know this is still just the beginning of our relationship as well. Any last words you want to share about the book or anything? Why someone would want to read it? I've got some ideas on it as well, but anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, I just want to. It is a story that's based primarily in Haiti and what God has done through there. But there's a reason we don't use Haiti in the title, because it's not limited to that story. This is a story of leadership. This is a story of a life journey. This is a story of faith in the midst of hardship, walking through pain, and a story of trust. And it's a story of community of people at Mission Experience that have bound together as family that you just can't walk away from and you're with. So there are numerous angles to this story, and it can probably touch you at different parts of your own journey and speak to you at different parts of your own journey.
Well, I absolutely agree. And, I've heard it said, you're either in the midst of a storm, coming out of a storm, or going into a storm, in life. And I love that through this book and how you started off talking today, that it is not just a story of hardship or pain. There is a way to find that glimmer of hope, that nugget of peace in the midst of all the chaos that's going on around, and you're able to do that. And I truly believe that is one of the hallmarks of a mighty man of valor, which you are. And so I thank you so much.
Appreciate it. It's good to be here with you again, Kevin.
Yeah. Once again, where can we look at the book? It'll be coming out hopefully end of August. We can do some updates on that as well.
You can do it on the Mission Experience website. It's called Unsafe Faith. You can do it on Amazon. It'll come out on ebooks, and so it's available there as well. You can look for it in those type of venues. And
Steve and I are going to work on getting him to do an audiobook as well. So we're going to get that, because that would be obviously huge. Well, hey guys, also if you want to support what is going on there in Haiti, please go to the website, the Mission Experience website, just missionexperience.org.
Yep.
Okay. Go there. If you want to give money, not really taking people in. We didn't talk about that right now, but you were mentioning earlier that the biggest cargo you're bringing right now are vests that you're bringing for the people that protect you, while you're there. So you're not bringing people into the country right now, but hopefully that will open back up. Things will calm back down in the future.
Yeah, we're hoping so. It really is based upon now the political situation. So just really staff is going in right now and the board.
Yep. Are you active on social media? Do you do any of that stuff or?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, for Mission Experience is on everything.
Okay.
They're on Twitter, Facebook. Kaylee, who works for us, has us on all that kind of stuff.
Good.
So you just look under Mission Experience, and I'm on a lot of it, stuff that I don't even know I'm on because they put me on it.
They do it. Well, I love it. Well, Mike, you are an entrepreneur. You are a leader. You're a pastor. You're a visionary, and you are an incredible servant, and you are a lighthouse out there showing a great way for people to follow. So I thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, have a badass day. Be a badass dad. We are out. Hey, guys, I wanted to thank you so much for listening to the Badass Dad podcast. We are so excited about what's going on in 2021, and we want to encourage you to connect with us. So you can hit us up on the Facebook or Instagram at BadAssDads _podcast is where you'll find us on Instagram. And if you want to hit me directly, it is KDH at BadAssDads.org. KDH at BadAssDads.org. Man, appreciate you guys. Let's get after it.